Joined now by Vicki McKenna for our weekly Culture Cast segment. Vicki, thanks for your time today.
My pleasure, Duke.
Well, the weird world we live in gets weirder. I mean, I've never seen anything like this, Vicki. We have absolutely surrendered anything like standards, trying to help kids get better at school. We have decided collectively, we've lost our minds, that it's better to promote illiterate and functionally illiterate students than it is to have any standards at all in the name of social justice. Talk about what the radical left-wing governor of Oregon, Kate Brown, what she just signed.
You know, what they're doing is actually celebrating illiteracy. That's what's going on here. You've got this governor of Oregon who quietly signs a piece of legislation that completely eliminates any proficiency standard measurements for the kids in her schools. So what we have, you know, the dumpster fire of public education couldn't be any more obvious at this point. Now, teachers don't have to teach and students don't have to learn because we're not going to measure whether teachers teach or students learn. And why? Because learning and education and written word and showing your work and and time management and studying, these are all vestiges of white supremacy, or as they're calling it now, Duke, white inferiority. So apparently now it is superior to be illiterate in the United States, a country that is difficult to fail in unless you are illiterate. Now you've got the celebration of total failure as some kind of, cultural touchstone that the left, seems to think they need to defend. I don't have any words except it's time to defund this mess. Why would you want to pay over $1 trillion so that nobody is ever expected to learn anything? This is $1 trillion babysitting operation, not education. And in the state of Wisconsin, to the tune of about $15,000 or $16,000 per students per year, why don't we just zero it out and get the exact same result?
Well, also, they're real clever, these race baiters. They've decided to change the word white supremacy, which suggests, maybe there's something to that. Maybe there is something supreme, to white inferiority. And it's ironic, isn't it, that the majority of these inferior white kids who have all of this privilege, they know how to read. And what we're really punishing here is black and minority kids. What we're telling these kids in places like Oregon, we are going to waive all standards so you, inner city African-American kids primarily, who cannot read, who cannot do math to save their lives, you're going to get the same promotions, you're going to get the same benefits as kids who are actually learning are. You're going to end up going to college now and you're going to get money to do that. And this is equity. This is what equity means. Equity means that white kids and Asian kids who can read and do math and black and Hispanic kids who can't will be treated absolutely the same, except, of course, the white kids and the Asian kids are going to pay a price for knowing, while the non-white and Asian kids are actually promoted ahead of them in the name of equity. It's odd. It's really odd, and it's as far as you can get.
It's dysfunctional. It's completely dysfunctional. It can't work. This can't work. Illiterate people who are completely uneducated being falsely promoted based solely on the color of their skin. It's not going to work. It is completely dysfunctional. You need engineers, you need doctors, you need people who know how to read, you need literate people in a culture so that that culture actually appreciates that this is a participatory democracy, or at least we pretend it does. You need this. It does not work without access to the materials of basic knowledge. But here's another thing that Oregon's doing. I have no doubt that the scores in Oregon are the same as they are here in Wisconsin, in Green Bay, in Milwaukee, in Madison. In Milwaukee, 8.6% of Black children are literate in math. 9.6% are literate in English language arts. It's about the same in Madison. When you get rid of proficiency, what you're getting rid of is the spotlight and the magnifying glass on the many decade now long educational failure that we are paying enormous amounts of money for. And I don't know what it's going to take to finally get parents ticked off enough to actually abandon this failed, broken, decaying structure of education for something more rational. But maybe something like this is actually what it's going to take.
Yeah, I'm thinking this way. If you're going to be able to, as we're moving towards this, if government is able to mandate vaccines, they will eventually be able to mandate compulsory attendance at public schools. Let's not forget where this is heading. After the break.
You know they hate homeschooling. You know they hate it.
After the break, let's talk about the broader consequences of this for the American public. Joined again by Vicki McKenna for CultureCast. Vicki, we were just talking about the long-term consequences of hiding from the American people the illiteracy primarily of minority students. That's what the governor of Oregon just did. She made it impossible to determine what people are, at what level education are, because she got rid of all the standards and the procedures. So the broader implications to me, as we said right before the break, are pretty dire. We know, as you had said before, that the liberals really hate homeschool. They're not really real fond of private schools. If the government believes, and seems like they're going to get away with it, mandating masks. My school, UW Oshkosh, after hemming and hawing all summer, yesterday decided masks it is. Everyone's going to have to, whether you're vaccinated or not, you're going to have to wear masks on campus everywhere. And so if they can do that, what's to stop them from mandating public school attendance, getting rid of homeschools altogether?
I don't think that you should think they can't do it. Of course they can do it. Of course they will do it, because many people have already left this system. I was just taking a look at some school attendance numbers. 1,000 people left the Madison School District. That's a net loss of 1,000 kids in an already declining enrollment situation. Where are they going? They're not just disappearing from Wisconsin. They're going to private schools. They're going to religious schools. They're going to homeschools. Homeschooling in the United States has doubled because of what has happened in COVID, with parents finally seeing the lack of education and the high level of political indoctrination their children are being exposed to. But think about this. When you have just decided that proficiency and measuring, however you would like to measure it, maybe it's not a standardized test, but somehow you have to measure whether or not students are learning and whether or not teachers are teaching. If you don't do this, if you don't mandate that anybody have any kind of objective and measurable standard for education, then what we are going to do is create a massive, massive underclass in the United States that will be ready to unleash a revolution, a French-style revolution in this country, because they will be too ignorant of our history. They will be too, disconnected from the process of a representative democracy, that they won't know how to access the levers of power, and they won't have any power because they will be too illiterate to have any power. And so this is about, I think, teeing up, unleashing an ignorant revolution in this country that you won't be able to reason with. There won't be any argument against it, because argument itself has been rejected in favor of some kind of fake vision of equity. And think about this. Frederick Douglass preached about Black kids having access to education, about the importance of literacy so that Black people could participate in the ideals that our founding fathers laid out in the Constitution. Martin Luther King Jr. said the same thing, wrote extensively on education and the importance of literacy. And now we have, I guess, gone full circle, and we have decided to embrace ignorance as some kind of great, some sort of great trait that these suffering masses of people have. No, we are the ones making people ignorant, and anybody who stands by and lets this happen is complicit, and this is evil.
It is evil, but you and I have spent a lot of time discussing the progressive mind. I would argue that a significant number of progressives actually think they're benefiting, they're doing a favor, they're leveling the playing field by stripping all expectation away from Black and brown students. They don't have to learn anything. They shouldn't have to learn anything. Teachers should spend all their time telling them how they deserve not to have to learn things. You have been a student of the leftist mind ever since you were young. I I know your stories about being on the left when you were in college. Explain, before we have to go here, just explain the mind of the liberal progressive. Is it something they actually believe that they're doing help here, or is it more dangerous than that? They know exactly what they're doing to this country in the long term.
I think the people in power know exactly what they're doing, Duke. I think some of the sort of mid-level progressives who are out there, chanting Black Lives Matter, I think they're probably honestly think somehow against all logic, against all history, that this will work. But I think the people who are pulling the levers here are people who know exactly what they're doing. And an ignorant population is a population that can be ruled. And you have a group of people who do not think that representative democracy is something that is an ideal. They don't trust the people. They think the people are morons. They want to disconnect the people from any access to power. And they want to be able to determine for the ignorant masses the choices that we would never make for ourselves that are good for us. They want to rule us. They believe they're ruling us because they're better and more benevolent. And that this is the sort of tough love that we're going to have to live through. But mark my word, it's not right now. It's Black kids, it's Hispanic kids that are going to be dumbed down. But in very short order, these changes will make sure an entire population is too illiterate to fight back.
And you have a Republican Party that's hemming and hawing over virus mandates. Should we or shouldn't we? You would think this would be one area in which independents, moderate Democrats, and Republicans could unite to fight this. And what are we doing? What is the plan here?
The Republicans are too busy trying to figure out ways to give Joe Biden a massive infrastructure win that will cost $3.5 trillion that we don't have.